and there's a great responsibility that comes with that. And so what this episode is about the rules for life. And specifically, Dr. Stephen, I'll let you share with us what it is specifically. But I believe that this episode will add tremendous value to each one of you in your life. Welcome back to another episode of the Remarkable CEO podcast. My name is Dr. Pete Camiolo.
And I'm Dr. Stephen Franson.
One of the things that we have committed to in the Remarkable practice, as well as within the Remarkable CEO, is that we want you to build businesses that complement your life and life that complements your businesses. That we are committed in the Remarkable practice to having a remarkable business or remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life and not instead of one. And there are moments in our life, there are milestones and times in our businesses and our life that seem to stand out more than others in particular. And Dr. Stephen, you are at one of those moments. You're in one of those seasons, and we've been discussing this over the last probably year, but for sure the last 6 months, it's been at the forefront of much of our conversation. I know that it is at the depth of your heart and where you're at. And so Dr. Stephen shared in a document with me that it hit me so hard just reading it and reflecting on what he wrote there. And it's I'll let him explain it to you, but it specifically applies to life. And, we talk a lot about practice and business on this podcast, and we will continue to do so. But this episode is going to speak right to you, for all of you, for your life. This applies to each one of you. It applies to your families. It applies to you as leaders. We know that we're speaking to you as leaders, and there's a great responsibility that comes with that. And so what this episode is about the rules for life. And specifically, Dr. Stephen, I'll let you share with us what it is specifically. But I believe that this episode will add tremendous value to each one of you in your life, and it will immediately be able to be applied in life and also in your businesses as well. Dr. Stephen, I know there's this is a big moment for you and Dr. Camilla and your family. So I'd love for you to unpack a little bit about the inspiration behind these rules and specifically what this is for and who this is for.
Yeah, Dr. Pete, I think I want to say thank you for suggesting that we do this episode. We're going through this incredibly exciting and really emotionally trying time of launching our oldest child, our son Sam, to college. So for any of the parents out there, you understand what I mean. When your first kid leaves home to go to college, go off to university, right? So just coming to grips with the fact that this little human, one of my favorite humans in the world, is no longer going to be waking up in my home, at least for a stretch here. It's really incredible, right? So there's so many emotions. I'm so excited for him. I'm so encouraged around who he is, and I know that he's headed to the right place, right? So he's off to Liberty University. We're super excited for him, but at the same time, there's just so much trepidation, and you can't avoid the emotion, right? So they say that your child is your heart walking around outside of your body, and that's definitely true. For Camilla and I, it's just our kids. Like I'm sure everyone listening is like can relate. It's like it's an extraordinary time, and I created what I call the rules for life. That was a very organic thing that we started when the kids were little. Like there was just rules, and they were always meant to be like the laws of the jungle for the kids to learn. And we've collected these over the years. I was always journaling them, right? So rule number 1, what's rule number 3? What's rule number 7, right? And this has been part of the culture of our family, of our parenting, of their childhood. And for the first time, I just captured all of them into one document, one letter, one post, and sharing it. I'm sharing it obviously with my son. I'll be sharing it with my daughter Emma as well. But I thought it would be worthwhile to share with everyone hopefully you'll find some value in this.
So from a context perspective, as most of you probably realize, we record our podcast before it airs. So this is being recorded the very week of you taking Sam to Liberty University. So as far as sensitivity goes, we're right at the sensitive moment. So you're catching Dr. Steven right here as he is as vulnerable as he could be. He's in that vulnerable state. So again, we really thought this would be of tremendous value to all of you as you're listening. So Dr. Steven, I'd like to get right to it. Thank you for sharing that. Just coming to grips with the reality of what you're walking through, but also and I've shared this, Dr. Steven, with my wife, and sometimes it doesn't always go over very well. Because I probably say it at the wrong time and maybe in the wrong way. But I've always thought our businesses are very much like children. I know they're not the same. Trust me, I know they're not the same. I've been told that I don't know how many times, but every time I try to describe, owning and running a business, it's like raising a kid. Like there's just so many elements. It needs to be fed. It needs to be kept alive. It needs to be disciplined. It needs to be nurtured and encouraged. It needs to have all the needs being met. It has needs. It always needs to be addressed. This is, I think, as we walk through this, I want us to listen through two lenses. One is lens as, as let's say parents, but also lens as leaders, people who are leading people, whether it's your team, it's the patients you serve, the communities that you serve. This applies across the board. It's just so rich with truth. So let's jump into, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I'd love to.
No, I think
let's jump into number one. Yeah.
I think it's important to frame it, right? So, the reality is a remarkable life is a fully integrated life, right? So when you're integrating, when you're integrating your personal life with your professional life, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, like everyone listening to here, you can't not integrate it, right? That just doesn't work. That leads to all sorts of misalignment and dysfunction and stress, right? So it is a fully integrated life. And we can take what we learn in our professional life and bring it into our personal life and enrich it, and vice versa. We can find where we're learning and whatever we're having success with in our personal life to bring that into our professional life as well and enrich that, right? So I think that there's a lot of exchange here as leaders. One is developing us to be better in the other, right? So I love what DeMartini teaches on this, which is make your publics private and your privates public. I think that's really important. That you're leading, right? So you're living out your leadership, whether you're at the helm at your business or leading your home. So hopefully there'll be value in all of these 12 rules for life, that they are actually in an order, and the order was they were like literally taking shape. This was very organic as the kids were growing up. So you might enjoy some of these and you just recognize that it's like you're talking, initially I was talking to kids, like little kids, 3-year-old, 4-year-olds, etc. So have some fun with this and as we take a bit of a stroll down memory lane at the same time.
So if it's cool, Doc, I'll say what each rule is, and then you can unpack it for us. And I already told Doc, I said, it'd be hard for us to probably make it through 2 of these or 3, just knowing us. We love to unpack things and go as many layers deep, but we'll move this along as we go. So first rule number 1, if you want great friends, be a great friend.
Yeah, so you can just imagine like driving home, kid in the back seat, strapped in. This is, when Sam was the solo kid at this point, and his sister Emma hadn't come along yet. Just dealing with other kids and playing with other kids. Like picture it straight away, like in nursery school, like even before kindergarten, and dealing with the trials and tribulations of getting along with other kids when you were an only child at that point, and making friends and just trying to teach them, what does it take really to have great friends. It's first and foremost, just lead from the front, be a great friend, right? So, it was always our wish that our kids would be surrounded with people that cared about them and loved them and have great friends and great friendship. That's such an important part of our culture and our family. We're just surrounded by so many wonderful friends. That's how I was raised and that's how I was brought up. We were always the house where everybody hung out. We were always the yard that all the kids played in. And it was really my parents who created that environment where it was, they never met a stranger, right? So it was just like everyone was welcome, the more the merrier. And they just raised their kids to be great friends. And, net, you see this accumulation of these wonderful friends, and it's just such a blessing. And really, I mean, I think that translates directly into business. And, when you talk about, if you want to have great followers, be a great leader. If you want to build a great team, you've got to be the person that would attract that great team and lead that great team. If you want great patients or great clients or great customers, man, it's the same thing. It's just like, it's going to be a reflection on your leadership. And it just reminds us to check ourselves first, right? So always, if you're frustrated with your team, or you're frustrated with your patients or your customers or whatever, always stop and check yourself first. Are you being a great leader?
So good. And that's exactly where my mind is going here, is exactly where you just applied it. So this applies, I think a lot of chiropractors also, it's a lonely road. I think a lot of docs feel very isolated and lonely, and that's why it's so important to be plugged into a tribe. And if you're not plugged into a great tribe and a great family, get plugged in. The Remarkable Practice is just one great family and one great tribe that exists in chiropractic. But one of the things that I value is that the relationships that I have with my fellow brothers and sisters in our profession, I cherish and value the relationships that I do get to have. So it also applies to, how do you come alongside of your own, brothers and sisters in the profession, in your tribe, but also in your community and town. I remember when I went to this was actually really important. When I opened my office for my first office, I remember a chiropractor came and visited me, scheduled an appointment, wanted to come and visit. He came and visited me. He just came to say, welcome, welcome to, the town. And, here I was, didn't even open or barely open. I have my major competitive goggles and hat on, man. I'm like, get out of my way, and this guy comes in more mature, more wise. And I have since become very good friends with this guy and his family. Great chiropractor, great human being, but he taught me something that day. He actually taught me about being a good friend. He taught me about being a good colleague. He taught me about humility. He taught me about kindness. I didn't learn it that day. It took me years to actually discover what he demonstrated to me that day. And I can reflect back on that now. His name is Jolt, Dr. Jolt. If he listens to this podcast, I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Jolt Mueller there, because he demonstrated that. And, I appreciate that. And I've now learned, that lesson. So I appreciate him. And for those who are in our lives, and I would encourage all of you to think about who are the people in your lives who've had that type of an impact on you, and how can you be that type of a person for, the next generation, and be that friend, that chiropractor, that leader, Dr. Stephen, that you talked about. All right. Rule number 2, be careful when you're zipping up your zipper.
For all the boys out there, or anybody who's raised a boy, or maybe you're married to a boy, you can just recognize that this is a potentially contentious moment, pulling up your zipper, right? So I can just remember there was a very close call that Sam had when he was a little guy, and it just created a perfect opportunity for me to teach him about making sure that he stayed present and stayed focused with whatever you were doing, right? So don't lose focus. Pay attention to what you're doing. Be really intentional and be deliberate with everything that you're doing, right? So present time consciousness is such a rare thing. And, the idea of, developing this skill set and this habit of being able to stay focused and present with what you're doing is incredibly important, especially when you're zipping up your zipper, right? So, obviously this translates perfectly and beautifully into being a great chiropractor. So we all know, that healing takes place in presence, not in time. It's your present time consciousness that people are searching for and they're paying for. That's when healing happens, is when you're present, right? So being super intentional and being really deliberate about staying present through a new patient consultation or a report of findings, or a team meeting, or a huddle in the morning, or the opening and the close of your Better Results Faster workshop. So the ability to develop the habit of staying present and the ability to stay focused, man, you got to develop these things like muscles.
Yeah, it's so good. Such great advice for boys. I have 4 of them. So great wisdom there to be applied, but also, as you stated, the need to be present. And one of the things that I've recognized, I have the opportunity to work with a lot of younger doctors. I'll call, maybe an associate doctor or just a younger doctor going into practice. And one of the things that I pay closest attention to whenever whether I'm on a coaching call, we're at a live event, we're doing a training, is I actually pay most attention, not to their words, but to their presence. Because I always tell them, listen, you could screw up the words, but if you are with me and you are listening and you are speaking from a place of certainty, conviction, and you have that presence with you, that presence, being fully focused and present, you will be more effective. You will be very effective in what you're doing. And so it's not an excuse to not like know the script and say the right things and do things the right way. It's not. I'm just saying that it trumps in many ways, some of the other, let's call them tactics, because it supersedes it, because it has to do with who you are and who you're being and how you're making that other person feel. So I love that. And we could probably linger on that one for an hour. So let's go to the third one, Dr. Steven. Leave the beach cleaner than you found it.
Yeah. So this is a take on, my dad raised me with always leave a campsite cleaner than you found it, but we're a beach family, right? So my kids were always raised with the standard that you should leave the beach cleaner than you found it. In other words, pay attention, look around. If there's something that needs to be fixed, fix it. If there's a mess, clean it up. And it doesn't matter whether you made it or not. This is about taking personal responsibility, but really taking global responsibility. Like, our world needs this now. We need people who are aware and they're mindful and they have situational awareness and they're looking around and they're looking for rights or wrongs that need to be righted. They need to protect and they need to clean up, regardless of whether they were the ones that made the mess or not, right? This is just such an important leadership trait, that you be the person that shows up and makes situations better. You be the person that shows up and make relationships better. You be the person that everybody knows when you are there, things are going to be better, right? So this is an incredibly rare trait. And it seems to be generationally getting more and more rare. So, my kids were always raised with the consciousness of leave the beach cleaner than you found it, right? So take home some trash, bring some things in. If you see something along the shoreline, the straws or a can or, some plastic bag in the seaweed, we know where that's going to end up. Doesn't take anything. Just stop for a second and care enough to pick it up. It does make a big difference. So I think this is something that translates exactly and perfectly into every work environment. Don't have the attitude of like, it ain't my job, or that's not my problem, or it's not my fault, or I didn't do it, or anything like that. That doesn't matter. Like, you should have this commitment to being the person that when you show up and you see something that's not right, just make sure you make it right.
Yeah, Doc. I mean, there's so many, my juices are firing in so many levels, but, I just think about, the chiropractic profession. Will you leave the profession better than you found it? When you finish your career, whenever that exit season comes, because it'll come for all of us, is the chiropractic profession advanced because you were in it? When you leave your city and you leave your practice in the hands of the next doctor who's going to serve the folks in your city, did you leave it in a better place than when you found it? When I think about, just even each and every day in your office, every person that walks in your office most likely shows up as a bit of a mess, right? They come in because they've been lied to. Their mom was lied to. They were just or they live in ignorance. They just don't know any better. Our job isn't to make them feel bad. Our job is to meet them where they're at, bring them to a level of an epiphany where they get that aha moment. They begin to discover what is true and right, and they begin to live accordingly. We give people the opportunity to make things right, to make their lives better than they found it, to leave their family a legacy, so their family and their kids at least have a better chance to live. Because most of us didn't know the things that we now know, and we have passed that on to the next generation. So many things are firing, Doc, on that one. It's just golden. That's only number 3, folks. Are you loving this? All right, number 4. The way that you do anything is the way that you do everything.
So this goes down as this is my favorite quote. Like, if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see that then they ask, what's your favorite quote? This is my favorite quote. So the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And I think this one is really challenging and convicting. And I've really challenged my kids to recognize that it's not just the big things, it's the little things, and you're going to build habits, right? So there's a consistency that comes with your standards for excellence, what's considered acceptable to you. And so to make a commitment to personal excellence in just everything that you do, you don't have to be perfect, right? So has nothing to do with perfectionism. It has everything to do with your intention to do the best work you can do, regardless of the task and regardless of who's looking, right? So Dr. Pete, I think that, obviously we need more of this in every workplace.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing that jumps out to me, Doc, and I don't know why it's embedded within my mind as you're describing that, is entitlement doesn't fit here, right? Like it just doesn't fit here. And there's always a higher bar. There's always a greater measure of excellence, and it applies in every aspect of your life. And so we don't get to cut corners in anything. We do everything with excellence. We do everything with paying attention to detail. And for guys like me, I have to do everything with empathy and kindness and be patient because I tend to struggle with a lot of those things. So, I have to know where is my areas of weakness, because how I do, and how I do anything is how I do everything. And so if I can start to exercise some of these and develop these character traits and develop these skills in some areas of my life, just imagine how that'll apply in the other areas of your life. And I've seen that time and time again in my journey as a chiropractor, my journey as a coach, my journey as a husband, a father, a human being, a friend. So it 100% applies across the board. And I think that we should raise the standard with our teams and ourselves and what we expect, because it's so key. So number 5, Dr. Steven, very simply stated, it's part of it.
So my kids will roll their eyes every time they hear this, because we're right up there, Dr. Pete, with your empathy muscles that you need to develop, as mine too. But this is my way of loving on them, right? And it has helped them understand that when they are upset or they're disappointed or they're fearful or frustrated, right? So any of those emotions that come with like any level of pain or suffering or struggle when things are difficult, right? So the first thing they know they're going to hear from me is, hey, it's part of it. It's part of it. Like people don't want to own the flip side to everything that they want, right? So it's just like, it's part of it, right? So whether you're on the soccer field getting cleated, it's part of it. If you want to surf, guess what? You're going to have to paddle out and you're going to get pounded. You're going to have wipeouts. You're going to bounce off the bottom. It's part of it, right? So you falling for this girl, you got a crush on this girl and she breaks your heart. Guess what? It's part of it, right? So it's going to be part of everything you do that's worthwhile and meaningful, right? Anything that means something to you, that's meaningful, you have to recognize that there's always the yin, the yang. There's always the positive, the negative. There's always some consequences, always a price to pay for worthwhile work or worthwhile initiatives. It's going to be part of it. And yeah, you can say outside, well, I don't want to get hit. Well, then don't step on the field.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to get hurt. Well, don't paddle out. Right. So if you don't want to get pounded, don't paddle out. That's easy. You can avoid that altogether. You don't want to get your heart broken. Great. Don't fall in love. Right. Mm-hmm. So if you're afraid to fail, don't worry. Just don't even try to succeed. Right. So to help them understand, listen, it's part of it, that you can't get one without the other. And that is I think that's the essence of entitlement, right? Is to think that you can actually just get whatever you want without having to pay the bill.
And I'm going to apply this directly to being a CEO. A lot of the conversations that we have are, in order to be the CEO of your business, you actually have to not be the owner operator anymore. That's the hard part. So we think about the ascension, like the through the 4 seasons: launch, build, scale, then exit. It's an actual process of letting it go. And there's a process of laying it down. There's a process of that pruning process that we have to go through to be able to move and enter into our becoming a remarkable CEO of our businesses. And it's usually a painful process. It usually takes a period of time. It doesn't happen quickly. It happens over time, and it's very intentional, and it's costly, and it feels challenging for a season. It's very awkward. You almost feel like you're going backwards, not going forwards, and you have to walk through that, and it's real. We understand that. That's why we have this podcast. It's why we offer the support and the programs we do for CEOs and their teams. It's a big part of it. And that's why we need perspective. And that's what you provided, Doc, for your children. Every time you were speaking that, you were giving them a perspective that they needed to, oh yeah, okay. I don't necessarily understand it completely, but okay, Dad, I hear you, and here, okay, here we go. All right, number 6. And we're gonna get halfway through on this podcast. Dr. Steve, we're gonna have to pick this up, and I think we're gonna have to do a second part. Not have to, we're gonna get to do a part 2 on this one, because this is awesome, and I'm loving what we're doing here, and thank you again for sharing this with us, and also thank you all of you who are listening and taking this in, because I believe this is just another one of those upgrade moments. All right, number 6 of the 12 rules for life. Number 6 is there's always a trade-off.
Yeah. So this is for this has come along as more of my kids have matured, right? So when they start to recognize that, listen, for every choice that you're making, you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to 100 other things, right? So you have to understand you can do anything you want, you just can't do everything you want. And you definitely can't do it all at the same time, right? So they have to recognize that there's always a trade-off, right? So when you're looking at making choices, so many people, chiropractors included, when you're looking at choices, all you're thinking about is the opportunities. Well, if we do this, there's an opportunity there, and it's just like, oh man, think of all the awesome outcomes that'll come from there. But if I do this, then it could be the potential is amazing. And I love that optimism, and I love that positivity. But you have to recognize the flip side of it is every choice comes with consequences, right? There are going to be problems. There are going to be challenges. So it's very mature and creates great clarity when you look at options, option 1, 2, and 3, and just recognize each one of these options is going to come, each one of these choices is going to come with its own set of problems, its own set of challenges. So when you're facing a choice, choose the problems that you want to be solving. Choose the challenges you want to be facing. So, there's always a trade-off. No matter what thing you choose, it's going to come with its own set of problems. So when choose the problems you want to be solving.
So if you don't think that applies to your business, I don't know what does. I mean, I think about, the decisions we make every single day. One of the exercises I love that we do is the vision mapping exercise. We look at the decisions that we make. We look at our past. We assess, all the decisions we've made in the previous year. You look at that list and say, okay, what were the top 5 most important decisions that got you from where you were to where you are now? And we look ahead and we think about this. So the beautiful thing about these, Doc, is that these are applied in our businesses just as much as you've applied them in your family's life and your children, to be able to capture this wisdom and these rules for life, and to see that, truth is truth. That's what I found is the truth only becomes truer over time. Okay. So when you apply principles, that's what we love, living a principled life, right? Principles are true regardless of the context. So we talk about the 33 principles, or the principles of chiropractic, or these principles we apply in our businesses and our lives. These apply across the board. That's what I love about digging into these things, is because it's like, man, it's amazing how this applies so much to our businesses and our lives. And I can tell you right now, because I'm listening with my heart, not just my head, is that so many of you today needed to hear this. So I'm going to challenge you to listen back, maybe share this with your spouse, maybe share this with one of your kids. I don't know. Somebody else that needs to hear this, actually. And I'm going to encourage you to share this with them. Because I know, even as we were just having this podcast, I thought, man, this is such a great call for my wife and I. This is so good. Like, I want her to listen to this as well. I love for us to take this in and see, okay, how do you apply this to your children? How do we apply this in our home even more? How do we bring these things more to the consciousness of our children? And so I'm already getting some creative ideas about that. But I just think challenge and encourage all of you to hear this, listen to this, and then take an action step. Dr. Steve, I don't know if you have anything you want to leave everybody with. I know we're just halfway through, but we're going to pick this up. But how do you take this listen and apply it in their businesses and lives immediately? What would you suggest, Doc?
Yeah, man, I think repetition is the mother of mastery, right? So, I would hope that you could keep each one of these in your back pocket. And I hope it serves you and your family, your children, the way it has helped me parent and help my wife parent, and hopefully help our kids on the receiving side of this. Is like, we're trying to give them constructs. We're trying to give them guideposts. We're trying to give them something that they can lean back on. As my son's going to be, as of Wednesday, he's going to be, outside of our home. He's going to be on his own for the first time, and he has core values. He has a vision story, and he's got these 12 rules to life. So hopefully that mom and dad's going to be in his ear, and he's going to serve as guardrails to help him navigate this next season of his life, which I'm quite confident he will do beautifully.
All right. So you guys heard it here. We have begun a 2-part series, really from a place of inspiration. This is heart, head, hands, feet. So I want to challenge you, taking these 12 rules of life, which came straight from the heart, to bring them to your consciousness and apply them in your life and in your business. And when we will pick up with part 2 next week. Until then, God bless you all and have a wonderful week. Please stick around for more business insights from this week's bonus interview with our remarkable success partner, dedicated to helping you more successfully help more people. Enjoy. All right, CEOs. So I'm in the studio today with a dear friend of mine, a colleague, a remarkable CEO. You're a remarkable CEO, multiple business owner, impacting chiropractic and helping chiropractors save more lives, help more people, incredible marketing person. We're going to have a marketing conversation today with Dr. Nick Silveri. Dr. Nick, thanks for joining me today.
What's up, Dr. Pete? Thanks for having me.
We're not counting how many times you've been on the Remarkable CEO podcast, but he's been here a few times. So if you've been a regular, you might say, hey, I've heard of this guy before. If you're new, go back and listen to some of the old episodes. Nick's been on a few times and he always drops a lot of gold. And anyway, Nick, it's great to be in the studio with you and having a conversation about marketing. So Nick Silveri is the founder, owner of Leverage Marketing. So it's a company that
Leverage Media.
Leverage Media, meant to say that. And you do marketing and media through the media platforms. And he's also a remarkable CEO. He's one of our chiropractors, part of the Remarkable CEO program. And Nick, maybe just tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we're going to have a conversation. I've got some questions left for you to answer for our audience here today, but maybe just give us a little bit about who you are.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate you again having me on. The all-time record holder still for a guest on the CEO podcast. I am a chiropractor, and I've been a chiropractor for 16 years now. Went to Logan, and I've owned a practice or multiple practices every year, and I still own my practice in Illinois. And probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I really started to understand the value of content marketing. And so we started doing it for my practice, and just had a little bit of an epiphany, saying, this is what chiropractors need, not someone to teach them so much how to do it, but to help them do it. A done for you content marketing piece. And we've just been fine tuning that over the last, we just celebrated our 5-year anniversary, Leverage Media. And we've just been fine tuning that over the last 5 years of how to help chiropractors get their message out into their community, expand the 4 walls of their practice outside of their office, and get that out into the community. And then be found when people are searching, and generate qualified new leads. So it's just a different approach, I think, than most chiropractors are used to when we talk about chiropractic marketing. And I'm just excited to share any knowledge I can with the audience.
Yeah. So a lot of times we talk about scratching that itch, right? So let me ask you about pain. We say every businesses exist to solve a problem for someone else, right? So here you were in practice. I'm sure you were doing your own marketing. Maybe it's old school marketing, like talks and screenings and dinners and things like that. What was this an area of pain for you, like in the digital marketing space? Was it an epiphany? Like, how did it come to a head for you to recognize, hey, I got to solve this problem for myself? Or was it also, hey, I'm solving this for myself, and now I'm realizing, hey, we can actually solve this for other people? Walk us through the genesis of that process.
Well, the first step was that I had really gotten into Gary Vaynerchuk, if you guys follow him. And he's a big put out value, create content, and the sales will come. And they just resonated with me, right? Like just put that message out. Like chiropractic is the right answer to almost all health questions. And so if we could just get that message in front of more people, we would attract more of the people that we're looking for. So we had, I had really grown my practice on, spinal screenings, in-person events, yellow pages. And so as those things started, like there started to be, I'm in a town of about 100,000 people. There started to be less like in-person events, less expos that were being put on. The yellow pages were dying. I had kind of started to run some Google ads. So I was like aware of like I was the first person in my area to have a website. So I was aware of the importance of digital marketing, but content marketing was a different thing because there needed to be video editing done, posting, copywriting, scheduling, boosting, retargeting. And I didn't want to do any of that. And I think I'm like most chiropractors in that I'm fine with like sharing my expertise, but I don't want to have to like do any of the time consuming mundane work that goes into content marketing. So I hired someone to basically be an operator and to help me execute things. And I'm a big believer in, in traction, which is what the CEO program shares a lot of commonality with. And traction's all about, if you're a visionary, you've got to get somebody to help execute the vision. And so when I did that, the whole world opened up. And all of a sudden, I was able to just focus on the thing that I wanted to do. And I had a team of people eventually that was able to help me to execute that. And that was when I realized I was so sick of getting coaching and buying programs. And I'm just like, I'm an accumulator of knowledge. And so what happens is I don't always end up doing everything that I learn. And I'm just always like looking for new secrets, right? And what I realize is like most chiropractors are like that they like go out there and they look for knowledge, but they can't always go back and execute because they're busy. Not that they're lazy, not that they don't want to, it's just that they're busy because most of us are seeing patients. So when I had someone who could execute, that's when I realized that's what chiropractors need, is they need somebody that, like me, to have the ideas, and then they need to have a team that executes all of that for them. And the middle piece is them creating content, but we make that very easy and all that. So that's kind of the genesis of how that happened. Was I just realized that I'm like my ideal client.
So I love this conversation. So, you talked about, you used the word digital marketing, you talked about content marketing. Mm-hmm. And those are different. Now, not everybody gets that. I don't think everybody understands that. So talk a little about like the difference, of those things. So I think it's actually important for us to be able to define terms, like what does this actually mean and why it's actually different and what's the significance?
Well, content marketing is what we've been doing since the dawn of chiropractic. Spinal screenings is content marketing. Dinner talks is content marketing. Table talk is content marketing. It's just like I have some expertise and I'm trying to share it with you. Digital marketing is the platforms on the internet that exist: SEO, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, your Google My Business listing. All these things are just ways. The same way the yellow pages was the old school version of Google Ads. Somebody went to the chiropractic section, they were going to call somebody. When they type in a search like chiropractor near me, they're going to pick somebody. So you need to be everywhere possible for them to pick you. Facebook is no different than a home and garden show. It's just digitally and it's 24/7. So digital marketing just allows us to do it at scale. Whereas before you had to gather 30 people in a room, or you had to go give up a Saturday to go do a spinal screening. So this allows us to get that message that we usually only share with our patients out into a community that we're trying to influence.
So we talk a lot about, and you happen to name your company this, but we talk about leverage. So you talked about the busy doctor, or the doctor who wants to be busier. Let's call them that too, because sometimes that's an issue. But they want to grow their business, right? They want to make a bigger income. They want to make a bigger impact. They ultimately want to, have a more remarkable business, and
Mhm.
but they want to use leverage. So I want you to, share, because you actually talked about yourself as you solved the problem for somebody like you, and you realize, hey, my profession is filled with people just like me. Talk about that. Like how do we reach more people? Like, obviously marketing is a great way to reach more people, but specifically doing it the way that you guys do it.
So in terms of like how the like client doctor can leverage our services and leverage content marketing in general, I always say this, and this is like humbly saying this, that there are probably not more than 5 people in the world that know more about chiropractic marketing than I do. So by using our service, you get all of my ideas. This is all I think about all the time, is I just think about like how to do the best job for myself, for my own office, the test kitchen, and then also for clients. So, they talk about, to get to that expert level, you got to spend 10,000 hours, working on it, thinking about it, learning about it. And I've spent those 10,000 hours on chiropractic marketing. And because I'm just kind of like, I love it, that it just is, I'm always doing it. I'm never like resting on our laurels. What we do now is very different than what we did 5 years ago. So as a client, you get one-on-one coaching with me on what your content should be about. And you get my just never ending like idea stream of like, here's what we should be doing to help move people forward. Then you get to leverage my team, who are all experts at what they do, whether it's video editing or copywriting or the paid ad side of it. Like, we're just really, really good at this because it's what they do every single day, and we only serve chiropractors, and that's all we focus on, right? So you get to leverage my visionary abilities, and you get to leverage their execution abilities, because they do things much better than I would ever be able to do them, right? But more importantly is you get to leverage your expertise. Right now, all that expertise stays within most offices, stays within the 4 walls of their practices. And like, people's minds are just being blown at like how the body works and how smart you are and what a great adjuster you are and blah, blah, blah. Now you get to leverage the technology, you get to leverage the platforms, and we just make that easy for you, right? So like, those are the 3 ways that I think are the most important ways that you get to leverage working with us. And even if you didn't work with us, just content marketing in general and using these platforms. There's lots of people that are doing a great job without having somebody like me that are just, they intuitively know how to do this. What I know though is all these chiropractors that are killing it on YouTube, that are killing it on TikTok, a lot of those people are just like naturally like that. They love it, right? They're just like, it's a hobby to them the way it's a hobby to me.
Right.
Most chiropractors are not like that. They're never going to spend the time. They don't have the personality to really like become like a national figure and be able to compete against these people that naturally can do it. So I have a strategy and I have a structure that works regardless of how charismatic you are, right? Like, I love all of our clients, but there's definitely a scale from the most charismatic to the least charismatic client. And I need something that's going to work for all of them, not just the top 1% that are born to be TikTok stars.
Wow. Yeah. Super powerful. And I think today more than ever, we're realizing that, like you said, with TikTok coming on and these reels and everything is about not only just having an Instagram post, now it's Instagram TV and it's your YouTube channel. I mean, it's really becoming like everybody's their own kind of like little personality and star. And just knowing many clients who we work with, who also work with you, who you are helping, knowing that, hey, you're helping them be able to do that in a way where a lot of them might, like you said, not naturally be doing that on their own, but with you and your support and the program, they're able to do that. So last questions in regards to return on investment. So we always talk about ROI, this as being in the CEO program. We talk about how you can use your money to buy someone else's time, energy, and focus. Yeah. And you do that so that you can free up your time, energy, and focus to do more of what you love to do, whether it's adjusting patients, building and scaling out businesses, launching new businesses, going on vacation with your family, whatever that might be, right? So talk a little bit about ROI, because I think at the end of the day, everything boils down to that, right? We always think about, all right, I'm going to make an investment. I'm investing in growing my business.
Mhm.
So talk to the CEOs as a CEO. Say, hey, how do you make decisions? I'd love to hear about how you kind of think about it and how you encourage even folks like myself and chiropractors, business owners who are kind of navigating this space. About the ROI thing.
Well, everybody always wants to make more money than they spend, right? So in terms of the money, the reason why we don't just help people create content and push that out organically is because that doesn't lead to new patients right away. And every chiropractor I've talked to, no matter how successful they are, no matter how many new patients they have coming in right now, they always want more new patients. They always want more money, right? And I get that. That's the nature of a business. So, it's not that we are just doing content marketing. We do the lead generation as well. I think we're the best in the world at doing Google ads for chiropractors, Facebook and Instagram ads, putting offers out there, inviting people to events in the office, doing lunch and learn, whatever it is that you're doing in the practice. We're going to use those attention-based platforms to help you promote that more. Most of the times that's a new patient special for chiropractic, but it could be any service that you do in the practice or anything else that you got going on. So we're very boutique in that manner, in that I'm not going to try to force you into a $21 new patient special because I already have that built. I'm going to try to help you promote the thing that you want to promote. So those things, paid advertising is going to help you get more people in and close more cases that lead to more dollars than you spend. So the ROI in terms of the money, we've got clients that probably get a 10x return, others that are closer to 2 to 1, 3 to 1. But it's about, like, we have to have that paid advertising side of it to generate people through the door, or you're not going to be happy short term or long term. In terms of the time and the energy, that's the part where I'm like, it's hard to even explain how much of an ROI there is on that, because like I said earlier, you're never going to get to the level that I am in terms of like understanding how all these things work together and staying kind of on the cutting edge of the new things. You would have to not be a chiropractor to spend as much time on it as I do. So if you're a chiropractor, I'm not saying it's impossible, but 99.999% of the people are never going to get to this level of understanding of like the different nuances of it. The time, what my team does and what I do for our clients, I don't even know how long that would take. If you say you hired some, Gen Z to help you run social media, which is what everyone thinks that they need to do in terms of like their social media presence is, oh, I hired a young girl who knows how to use Instagram and TikTok, having no idea how to do anything in terms of strategy or how to promote a chiropractic office. The amount of time that they would have to spend to do all of the things that we do for you, it's hard to even really quantify. So the way that I look at it and the way that I talk to my team about it is, we are basically the digital marketing department of every office that we have as a client. And I want them to think of it that way, is like, we are an employee, we're an expense on the P&L that they see every month. So it's like, I want them to feel good about, how you feel good about paying that best employee, that person you're just like, I can't believe that I get so much value out of this one person and I only have to pay them this much. I want them to think about that every time that our monthly fee comes out, because they think of us as part of the team. And I want them to have that same mindset, and just being able to do things that you could never get done out of one person. Because I have an expert in video editing, because I have an expert in copywriting, because I have an expert in paid ads, you would just never get all of that out of one person in your practice. But we cost a lot less than a full-time employee does.
So you talked about a lot of things, a lot of ROI right there. And one of the things I love that you talked about is, we're on your team. So put us on your accountability chart kind of thing.
Right.
Well, what I love about Leverage and Nick and your team is that you guys are part of our family. You're part of the Remarkable family. That's why, you're here and you've been a returning guest on our program, is because we love what you do. We love the wisdom and knowledge that you bring to our space, to our industry, to help our chiropractors become less obscure, put them in a position where they can be in front of their audience, be the experts, and put out incredible content, bring more people in, save more lives. And it's awesome. So thank you for being a part of our family and on our team and the Remarkable Practice and being on the Remarkable CEO podcast. How can our listeners get in touch with you, or what would be a good next step for anybody who wants to learn more?
Anybody, I do a free strategy session for anybody that's interested, and I go through what I call your big five: your website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Google presence, and just give you an idea of like, what are you doing right, what are you doing wrong, what would I recommend, show you some examples. And if you want to do that, if you go to contentintoPatients.com, so contentintoPatients.com, that'll take you through to the website. And I think it goes to the strategy session. So you just fill out the information and schedule a time that works for you. And, I can help you out however. And then you can also find me on social media. Everything's Dr. Nick Silveri. That's Silver with an I on the end. And, I'm always trying to put out good value, good content, trying to help out any way I can, or take my own medicine in terms of that content marketing piece.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Nick. And again, appreciate your time. For all of you who are listening, we appreciate you as well. Thanks for being part of our show. And I look forward to joining you next week on our podcast. Until then, God bless. Have a great week.